Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today we're going to be talking about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in November 2021. So November looks like one of, if not the strongest month Netflix is going to have all year. In this episode, we're going to be talking about 20 movies. A handful of them are big new releases coming to Netflix this month. We're going to talk about 10 series. Most of those are brand new, starting on season 1. And Netflix always begins adding holiday content in the month of November. I know it still seems early, but this video goes through to the end of November, so we're going to talk about some of the holiday picks coming this month and everything leaving during the month of November. If you're new here, welcome. Please consider clicking that subscribe button, but what we're going to do is we're going to start off with everything they're adding on November 1st, which is where they add a lot of the stuff you're familiar with, and then we're going to go through the month in chronological order, talking about all the points of interest along the way. Now, something that happens every year is they add some great Halloween picks on November 1st, immediately after Halloween. Because of licensing, most of these picks are already spoken for, but Netflix is able to pick them up, I guess, on the cheap starting November 1st. But this is going to include The Addams Family Values, which again would have made a good watch during Halloween, but it will also make for a decent November watch. They're also going to be adding Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is an interesting pick. This is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and it's far from his best movie, but it does have some really interesting sets, costumes, really fantastic performance from Gary Oldman. So there's a lot of great stuff in this movie and some not so great stuff, making it one of the more interesting movies he ever did. And then It Follows, I consider to be one of the best horror movies to have come out in the last 10 years. I understand not everybody loves that movie, but I think people that really enjoy classic horror movies find a lot to love with It Follows, because it speaks to some classic movies like Halloween in a variety of ways, but it also changes a lot of things up that you would expect, making it feel familiar and fresh at the same time, which is kind of a rare cocktail with horror movies, and It Follows nailed it in my opinion. If you're in the mood for some 90s action, they're going to be adding First Night with Sean Connery. They're also going to be adding Johnny Mnemonic, which is a great sort of cyberpunk, futuristic thing starring Keanu Reeves. A lot of the effects and stuff are certainly dated, but kind of in a good way. This movie's got a great 90s vibe to it. The sets are kind of wild. The story is absolutely crazy, yet it manages to work. If you never saw this sci-fi gem, I do recommend checking it out this month. And then a personal favorite of mine, The Last Action Hero, just a fantastic Arnold Schwarzenegger comedy because it spoofs really good action movies so well, mainly because it's from director John McTiernan, who's most famous for directing Predator and Die Hard. And this movie just oozes that John McTiernan look, making it feel really like a legit action movie with just some of the silliest stuff in a Schwarzenegger movie. I absolutely love it. But if you're in the mood for even more laughs, they're going to be adding Snakes on a Plane, which, as funny as that movie is, I still do kind of think the title is funnier than the movie as a whole. I mean, honestly, this is the best part of that movie.
I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane.
But if you want to watch the whole thing, they are going to be adding it on November 1st. They're also adding 21 Jump Street, which I don't actually think holds up very well, yet I still do like it. I've watched it maybe within the past year and still laughed. I just didn't feel like it felt nearly as fresh as it did when it first came out. A lot of the jokes just aren't as good after more than one watch, but I did still enjoy the whole concept where these guys go back to high school, yet everything is completely different. What was cool when they were in high school just a few years ago is far from cool now. That concept, I think, got delivered really well in that movie. But my top pick for a comedy out of everything getting added in early November is Stripes. I think this is one of Bill Murray's best performances. Not necessarily his best movie, but overall, this is Bill Murray at his best. If you've never seen it or it's been a while, again, top tier pick from me this month.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
And believe it or not, I actually recommend the Total Recall remake. Now, I do recommend it with the caveat that it is a terrible remake of Total Recall. In fact, it's so different from the original, I think they could have made a few more changes, including changing the title, and it would have been a pretty decent action flick starring Colin Farrell, and you've got some smoking hot action performances from Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel. Bryan Cranston plays a decent bad guy. Again, it is not a good Total Recall remake by any stretch of the imagination, but it does make for kind of a cool cyberpunk movie. And then my absolute top pick out of everything they're adding on the first is The Nightingale. Now, I will warn you, this is not for everybody. This movie does depict sexual assault more than once. It is rough stuff, but The Nightingale is an incredible sort of drama adventure story that takes place in New Zealand. As I said, it is brutal, but the brutality definitely serves a purpose in telling this story, so be sure you're in the right mindset for this one, but it is an excellent movie. All right, moving on to November 3rd, one of the more interesting things they're adding for the month is The Harder They Fall. Now, this movie has been out in theaters for several weeks, but is coming to Netflix as a Netflix original just a little bit later than usual. And it's a Western that unusually features a mostly black cast with Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz, Regina King, Lakeith Stanfield, Damon Wayans Jr., and Idris Elba. And this is from what we'll call a music video director. This is his first big movie, and it has an interesting production style to it. It doesn't quite look real. It looks a little almost too polished. So I'm interested to see how this actually gets delivered, and so far it's got some mediocre reviews, but with the cast that's here and the overall concept and look, it's definitely something I'll be checking out. On the 4th, they add Catching Killers, which is a crime docu-series that actually follows people who have captured some major serial killers and other criminals, but it's people in law enforcement and some other fields that are talking about some of their more harrowing stories. Should make for a good watch. As I always say, I really like the true crime stuff that Netflix puts out. There's another big one coming up later on this list. November 5th brings Narcos Mexico Season 3. I've long checked out of this show, but I do understand it's still going strong and still has a strong following, so if you've been eagerly waiting for Season 3, you're not going to have to wait too much longer. And then one of the more interesting series that they're adding that may or not be for me is Arcane League of Legends. Now, this is based on the League of Legends video game, but the animation style looks absolutely beautiful. The setting, the concept, all looks pretty amazing to me, and they're releasing this in a very unusual manner. It's going to release on the 6th, but it's going to release at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is very unusual, and they're only releasing the first 3 episodes, so for some reason, they've got kind of a tight lid on this, which has only made me more interested in it. The 11th brings Seven Prisoners, which is a Brazilian drama about human trafficking. This is a movie that's already scooping up a bunch of award nominations. It's got very good reviews. It is going to be foreign language. The dubbing may be decent. It is sometimes on Netflix. Either way, I'll be checking this one out sometime in November. And then on the 12th, they add the biggest movie Netflix has ever done. It's called Red Notice, and it stars The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. And it's from a big-time Hollywood director. It's not like it's a first-time director or anything. This guy directed Skyscraper with The Rock, but he also did Dodgeball and We're the Millers, so some decent comedy movies as well, and this one looks like it should be pretty funny. And just packed with action. It looks like the type of big budget movie that would come out during the summer, and we're gonna get it on Netflix. And they have promised things like this before with movies like Bright, but Red Notice definitely looks like their biggest undertaking to date. I mean, the budget is estimated between 150 and 200 million, which is pretty typical for big Hollywood releases that do really well at the box office. So I'm curious to see how successful this ends up being for Netflix, and if it's successful enough for them to repeat it and do more and more movies like this on the platform. Because Red Notice is a Netflix original, it is likely going to be available on Netflix forever and is available in every country where you can currently get Netflix. But that's not the case with everything on this list, and certainly not the case with everything on Netflix. Things come and go, they're available in different countries, which is why I recommend today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN. Now, like all VPN services, they keep your web browsing safe, secure, and private, but CyberGhost keeps no logs, making it even more secure and private than a lot of others. But in addition to that, the reason I really recommend them above all the others is they have specialized servers targeted to Netflix in specific countries, and with just the toggle of a switch, you can now be watching Netflix in other countries, and they have vastly different libraries depending on where you are in the world. And not just things from that country, even though there is that, it's big budget American movies that they don't have the licenses for here in the US because they're too expensive, but they had the licenses in some other countries. So just by flicking that switch and keeping your current Netflix subscription, you can access way more movies than are currently available to you. CyberGhost is super easy to use. They have a 45-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can get a full refund. And they've got great 24/7 customer support, so they will be able to help you get it set up on multiple devices because you're going to be able to use it on up to 7 at the exact same time, and it's all the different types of devices you already use to stream movies. So go to the link in the description below, pay as low as $2.19 a month for this service. That's less than half the cost of one new release movie rental. $2.19 a month to unlock way more movies and shows than you could ever possibly hope to watch. It's a killer deal, that's why I recommend it. But let's go ahead and move on with the rest of everything coming to Netflix this month. Real quick, on the 17th, they're adding Supergirl Season 6, the remaining episodes. If they left you hanging by not adding all the episodes, they're coming soon enough. And then they're also going to be adding Tiger King 2. First off, I find it interesting that they're calling it Tiger King 2 and not Season 2 or anything like that. Just puts a little bit more of a stamp on it, makes it a little bit more of its own thing. I personally liked the first season of Tiger King. I know some people went absolutely nuts for it. I didn't think it was that special. I also didn't think it was total garbage. I thought there was some interesting elements in there. I'm curious to see if Season 2 is just a cash grab or if they've actually got some interesting developments to share with us that are worth watching multiple episodes for. And then November 19th adds another one of the just primo picks for this month, Cowboy Bebop Season 1.
Do not shoot her.
Please?
No.
What the actual
Now this is based on a classic anime series and it's live action, but it looks like it's done in a really interesting way. Not only am I interested in the cast choices that they made, the way that they shot this not only looks beautiful, but it looks really dynamic, a lot of fourth wall breaking, a comic book strip looking stuff that just looks kind of Scott Pilgrim-ish. So while I'm not really that familiar with Cowboy Bebop and the lore and everything, and I've never actually watched it, I am gonna be watching this series because it looks so damn cool. Now, longtime subscribers know I'm not really a big fan of musicals. They just don't do much for me, but there is an interesting one getting added to Netflix this month. It's called Tick, Tick, Boom. It stars Andrew Garfield, and it's actually directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's most famous for having created Hamilton. And what's interesting about this is it doesn't feel like your typical musical. Based on the trailer, it sounds like there's some a cappella, slapping on tables, and also just visually, there's some really interesting elements sort of coming to life in the trailer. Again, not really my cup of tea, but this one's got enough that's different about it to interest me into at least checking it out. Also on the 19th, they're adding a new series called Hellbound, which is a South Korean dark thriller series. Odds are a lot of Squid Game fans are going to be previewing this and checking it out. Very slim chance it's as good or as popular as Squid Game, but if you were really into that and you're just starved for some more South Korean shows like that, this one looks like it could be a hit, even if it's not as big a hit as Squid Game. On that note, I did do a Squid Game video where I recommended a lot of series and movies that are similar in their setup. So if you're interested in that, you didn't get enough of Squid Game, I'm gonna put a link to that down in the top pinned comment below. Also, in that top pinned comment is the link to today's sponsor and the full list of all the movies and shows I'm talking about in this video. When the video's over, you can scroll down there, do a screen grab with your phone, highlight the things you're interested in, and then you've got that with you for the rest of the month, and you should spend way less time picking out something to watch in November. November 23rd brings the Jonas Brothers Family Roast. Roasts are usually really kind of fun to watch. There's some dirty jokes, some digs at people, but with this one having the word family in it, I'm assuming it's going to be family friendly, which kind of defeats the purpose of a roast. So You can count me out for this one. Plus, I was in my 20s when they were popular, and I don't know really anything about the Jonas Brothers. I do, however, know quite a bit about Halle Berry. She's coming back with a MMA movie. She's a retired fighter that's getting back into the game. It looks a little grungy and dirty. It's been a while since I've seen her in anything, and certainly a while since I've seen her in anything I really liked, so I'm definitely going to be checking this one out. Hopefully it's a good one for her. And then also on the 24th, they're adding another one of the more interesting things for the month. It's called True Story, and it stars Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes. This is a limited mini-series about one of the biggest comedians in the country, played by Kevin Hart, although he's not playing himself, and there's murder involved. It sounds like it's pretty heavy drama stuff with Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes. I'm sold. I'm gonna be checking it out. This year, November 25th is Thanksgiving Day, and on the 25th, they're adding season 5 of F is for Family. What a fun thing to watch on Thanksgiving, a family that bickers with each other. But seriously, this is created by Bill Burr, who I think is one of the funniest comedians working today. The show is really funny, especially if you still like any of the animated comedy series. I do think F is for Family is one of the best ones on Netflix right now. The 28th brings 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. This is a documentary about someone setting out to climb the 14 tallest mountains in the world within a period of like 6 or 7 months. Sounds like wild stuff. I'm definitely going to be checking that out. And then before I tell you about everything leaving for the month, here are a couple of the holiday picks coming during the month of November. I did decide to group these together instead of peppering them throughout. And for starters, they are adding a couple of your typical quote-unquote Hallmark movies, including Love Hard, which actually stars Nina Dobrev. My wife is a big fan of hers, so we might be checking that one out together. The Princess Switch 3, they've made 3 of those now, and then A Castle for Christmas actually gets added the day after Thanksgiving. Those all, again, look like your typical Hallmark type movies. No judgment there. If you like those types of movies, all 3 of those are probably going to be bangers for you and no good for anybody else. They're also adding Elf Pets, Santa's St. Bernard's Save Christmas. This is actually an Elf on the Shelf Christmas special. They've got several things on Netflix right now, and they all make great Christmas specials to watch with the kids. That actually gets added on the 1st, so if your kids can't wait for Christmas, you can go ahead and put that on immediately. They're also going to be adding a series called Elves, which is Danish. It's probably going to be dubbed, but this is a horror series about some people that go to a remote island inhabited by elves, but they're not going to be the Elf on the Shelf kind. They sound like they're going to be the drag you into a hole and eat you kind, or whatever they do in that show. I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. And then my top pick for Christmas stuff getting added in November, there will probably be even more in December, is A Boy Called Christmas. This looks like it's filled with beautiful sort of fantasy stuff, Harry Potter level effects, things like that. This is one I'll definitely be watching with my kids as soon as we get past Thanksgiving. But here is everything leaving during the month of November. If you're new here, please note the date listed is the date that it is gone, which means you cannot watch it on that date. Make sure you mark your calendars to watch these prior to that date. I've gone ahead and put all of my top picks in bold, all of which I have talked about and recommended in prior videos. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter and seeing your name here in the video credits, there's a link in the video description. There's also a link down there where you can become a channel member and get access to exclusive videos right here on YouTube. But I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Netflix episode, and you will see me on the next one.